Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to the closing playbook for Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. We are going to get going in just a minute or two. We have Nathan is currently in the overnight options members only class. So we have a lot of people that are in that class that will be joining us along with Nathan in just, I'm sure, a minute or two. But while we are waiting for them, let's see what we can talk about. Jim said, can you tell me the size of the average loser on overnight? Trying to figure the math. So uh, the way that Nathan typically trades overnight options is that he gets in them, he sets a target right away, and then he lets them ride. So unless they're going to close or expire, rather, unless they're going to expire before you hit your target, and they're going to expire between the two strikes, then he just lets them ride. So more often than not, a loser on overnight options is 100% of whatever your investment was in it, the debit that it costs you to get in the trade. So if it's a dollar wide spread and it costs you, let's say, 60 cents to get in it, and the target is 80 cents, then you're buying in contracts of 100, so 60 cents makes it a $60 investment. You're shooting for a target of $80. Your profit would be 20, which would be 33% of the $60 that it costs to get in it. If you take a loss, more often than not, it's 100% loss because we're just letting it run till expiration to give it the best chance of going our way, or the most time to go our way before it expires. So most of the time, the loss will be that $60. Occasionally, it's going to expire potentially between the two strikes, and we have to get out of it. And in that case, you're taking a partial loss, so you might lose less than the $60 by getting out of it early. And you can always do that. You can always take a partial loss, but the research that Nathan has done on the overnight option strategy shows that by letting it ride till expiration and giving it every moment possible to get to the target, then you actually come out ahead rather than trying to hedge that by closing it early when it looks like it's going to be down. The wins that you make by staying in it till the end put you out ahead of the partial gains you get by selling out of it early. So they're typically 100% losses, but with over an 80% win rate, and the return on investment on those, you come out ahead even with those 100% losses by just staying in it. Hello, Nathan.
Well, hello. How's everyone doing?
All right. Just talking about a program you might be familiar with. Overnight options.
Yeah, probably am fairly familiar with that one. So we are just still moving some people over from that session into here, thanks to the overnight option class. If you guys were not on that class, well, you missed out a little bit of a preview, and you missed out on me breaking the tool again, which seems to be my custom now on classes. Every time we do it publicly for the first time, we overload the tool and it breaks. So it's kind of our tradition now. We couldn't break the tradition, Dave. You have to, to keep it rolling.
I'm still in favor of breaking that tradition, but
yeah, no, me too, buddy. Me too. Okay. Well, I'm going to do something fun today because I don't think Graham will be logging on today as far as I'm aware, which is really great for me because I'm going to steal his slides from the roundtable to set up my Bitcoin trade because I thought his slides were better than mine. So I thought I'm going to do this Bitcoin trade. You guys probably already know I've been talking about this for a while, planning on taking advantage of Bitcoin. I think Q4 has just simply an asymmetrical, outsized opportunity. Before I do that, let me just ask in the chat. We haven't asked this question in a long time. And I'm curious how the demographics have changed, for lack of a better word. So if you guys, there's like 500 people in here. If every single one of you would be willing to answer this question in the chat, I would really appreciate it. Because unless like pretty much everyone actually is involved, like we won't really get a good understanding. We'll kind of get an understanding of the people who are most active. So if you don't mind, if every single one of you don't mind answering this. My question is, if you thought there was a good opportunity in Bitcoin, would you trade it? Or would you just kind of say, well, cool, but I don't trade Bitcoin, or I don't trade IBIT, even if it's a regular ETF. Just curious, yes, you would trade it, or no, you would not trade it. If you don't mind giving me a yes or no in the chat, would be very curious. Just kind of because I think a year ago, if we asked this question, it would be about 50-50. And I think now it's probably 80-20, 90-10. Let's see, well, maybe 98-2, based on that chat. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So cool. Okay. Well, that good. So that makes me feel like I'm not wasting time for half the people in here then. Because it used to be, Dave, I'm sure you remember, not probably less than a year ago, we'd say, okay, now we're going to talk about this Bitcoin idea. You can trade with a regular brokerage account. And everyone would kind of tune out. Or not everyone, but half the people would tune out. And it was like, all right, we're not providing any value for half the people in here. But it seems like it is now 99% of people would. And so I'm only wasting 2% of your time. So for the 2%, I apologize. For the 98, okay, awesome. So for me, it's just simply, it's okay. Let me say it this way. It's not necessarily because I believe in Bitcoin in some kind of fundamental sense. It's not because I have a specific underlying prediction in Bitcoin that, and yes, I'm talking about ETFs, IBIT specifically. I do own actual Bitcoin, but right now I'm talking about IBIT. It's not because I think that the halving event is going to do X, Y, and Z. It is simply because I think the risk to reward opportunity on Bitcoin is incredibly good for Q4. If you guys remember, this is exactly what I said on the roundtable about 6 months ago on Tesla. I said, listen, I'm not telling you Tesla is a guaranteed winner. I'm not telling you Elon can recover from people lighting his cars on fire and everything else that's going on. I am just telling you Tesla has an unbelievable history of taking 15, 60% pullbacks and then going back to all-time highs. So from a risk to reward standpoint, Tesla is too good to pass up, even though I'm not saying, hey, I guarantee Tesla will go up. This is the exact same situation. If you took that Tesla trade with me, you are up massively on Tesla from that risk to reward scenario playing out. So that is where I'm at on Bitcoin. With that said, let me just steal Graham's slides unashamedly here because he laid a great case for the overall bull market and then specifically for Bitcoin. And if you missed the roundtable, this just gives you a little bit of context for those. So let me add that. Boom. Okay. So this is where Graham was talking about. How do we really compare? A lot of people think we're oversold. A lot of people are saying that we're in the AI bubble, all those kind of things. But in reality, if you take where the market really started rallying, especially if you consider price being near all-time highs and then going higher, well, we're actually fairly early into that stage. And by the way, I would tend to agree with that. If you guys were on the round table, I gave you a different reason and a different logic for why we're still fairly early into the bull market. The biggest drawdowns, as Graham shared, have been less than 3%, which is just wild to think about. And the market has continued to squeeze up. I still think the quote unquote max pain for the market is actually up, not down. So people are often saying things like, oh, this market is going to drop and crush retail traders. I disagree. I think the max pain for retail traders is actually up, not down, which is a little bit of a contrarian view. But if you look at the put to call ratio, I think that's what you'll find. Average monthly returns, obviously going in the right direction here for Q4. Seasonals going in the right direction for Q4 as well. Gold going in the right direction for Q4 as well. 5 months in a row typically means, guess what? The market keeps going higher. So Dave, let me ask you a question. Conventional wisdom, just quick headlines, talking points. Tell me if this sounds correct to you. I think from what I hear, I would hear something like, hey, market's been up 5 months in a row, probably due for a pullback. Sure. Would you agree that would kind of be the common consensus that you would hear talking heads say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, to me, this is one of the big misconceptions, right? The idea that, hey, the market's overextended, it's due for a pullback. It's not that it's fundamentally wrong. Obviously, the market does have pullbacks. The market doesn't move in a straight line. But I think a truism is that the market typically goes up a lot more and a lot longer than people think that it's capable of. And I think this is a great data point for that. when the S&P runs 5 months bullish in a row, the odds that it actually goes up more over the next 12 months is dramatically high. 93% of the time, it actually goes higher over the next 12 months. And so I think the environment we're in is very much kind of a melt up environment, a squeeze environment, whatever you want to call it, a sugar high, whatever you want to call it. That's more the environment that we're in right now. And then, of course, the one that really checks the mark is Bitcoin, right? The Bitcoin seasonality is pretty absurd for Q4, 27 and 38%. Obviously, we are talking about Bitcoin, so those numbers are going to be dramatic, right? You're not going to see any stocks where their average seasonality moves them up 38% in a single month. But for Bitcoin, you do have that kind of potential. And in my opinion, the market underprices that potential still to this day, especially when you use spreads the way that we do, right? Where it just undervalues the fact that Bitcoin really could go 20% above all-time highs. So I'm going to take that trade, folks. I'm going to target probably around 100 grand if I can here. If the risk reward is good enough, I think it will be. But I purposely didn't look at these spreads yet so that I could do it in real time with all of you and just kind of see how good the risk reward ratio can be looking forward into the next 3 months. So let me stop sharing this and start sharing my Thinkorswim, and we can actually take a real-time look at what Bitcoin can do. So share screen.
I think some of the credit to people being open to Bitcoin, and maybe credit is the best word, is not necessarily good or bad. If you decide you don't want to do Bitcoin, that's not necessarily a negative thing, but goes to you and Graham, because I think part of the reason that people are probably more open to it than they might have been a year ago is because maybe before they thought, well, they're priced out of it. Like the only way to do Bitcoin is buy Bitcoin. And now they see trades on IBIT and they're used to doing options and they're used to doing spreads. And now it seems like, well, okay, I could be in the category of people who could trade Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I'm thankful that the ETFs have come online. Like I said, I do still have some actual Bitcoin, but as far as actively trading, it's a million times easier to do it, on IBIT and these kind of assets. So, folks, what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the January 26 options. So that's 16th of January 2026. The reason is because we want to use the entire Q4 to our advantage, right? We want to see, can Bitcoin make a big move in Q4, and we want to give it all of Q4 for that to happen. And I think this is especially important because in 2025, we've seen a lot of like the market getting out of whack and then coming back around, right? So we've seen it like, hey, it didn't do what we thought it would do. It was kind of behind, but then it caught up all at once. Like if you guys remember in April, we were saying, okay, the market's down 20%. It's pretty far out of the positive seasonality trend, right? Well, fast forward 3 months, it's back in line with the trend, even though it was so dramatically out of line for a little while. And so I think we might see that. We might see maybe October, Bitcoin flushes 10%, right? And then it's like, oh, wow, our trade's dead. But as long as we're giving it November, December, I actually think it's not dead. I think it could come back and do one of those kind of moves where it's way out of whack, but it ultimately does make a big enough move. So that's really why I want to make sure we're doing January options on this, which would be January 16th on IBIT. Now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to trade it super aggressively here. I want to trade like 20% out of the money, if not more, on IBIT. We're not playing for a move that if Bitcoin's break even or grinds up with the market, we make money. We only make money if Bitcoin makes a big, big move. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to put this in my main account because I want to put some more size on this trade. So what is 20% out of the money on this, just as a starting point? We might go 15%, we might go 25%, just depending on where things actually go. But let's just do it. So $65, multiply that by 1.2, 65 times 1.2. I'm just doing it on my calculator. You guys can't see that right now, but that's the math that I'm doing, because that would be 20% increase. That gets us to $78 share. Okay. So IBIT, let me just type in the chat. IBIT at 78 equals 20% increase. Okay. So At $78, we would have that. So we know we're going to look somewhere in that neighborhood for our trade. Well, you can see that's already about a 400% return. Okay. So it's pricing at about 20 cents, 25 cents. It could be worth $1. Why? Because this is a $1 spread. And so 80 cents on 20 cents of risk would be a 400% return. I'm going to go, I think, one strike higher. Let's see if I can get a little boost. Ah, there we go. Okay, I had to go 2 strikes higher. I wanted to see if I could get this closer to 15 or 16 cents. Okay, so if I trade this for 80, I'm actually going for more like a 22% ROI. Okay, and the idea is we're asking for a big fat move. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to add a little bit of width to the spread. Okay, so I'm going to take this at $77 and $80. Now, the reason I'm widening the spread just a bit here is because I want to trade a fair amount of contracts. And so I just want to lower the fees. Okay, so before I move on, just to make sure everyone understands, if you are trading a couple contracts, if you're trying to make $200 or $500, you should not do the 77.80, just do the 79.80. If you are putting more size on it, then you might want to do what I'm doing, where you widen the spread. The only reason I'm doing that is to take some of the fees away. Okay, does that make sense? Everyone, give me a yes in the chat. I just want to make sure that you guys understand this is not a widening of the spread because the $3 does anything other than lower the amount of contracts that I'm using. Okay. Again, when I do these kind of trades, it's really important to me that you don't just see the trade post in the chat, but you actually understand the why behind some of the choices. So if you're trading smaller, if you're looking to make $100, trade 79.80. The only reason I'm widening it out is just to lower the fees because of the amount of contracts. Okay, perfect. So with that, I'll post in both in the chat. So go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, can you also just mention kind of how speculative or aggressive you think this is, so that maybe everybody should or shouldn't necessarily jump in on it?
Yeah. So certainly it's speculative. I mean, we're looking for a 25% move in the underlying stock. So from that standpoint, it's dramatically speculative. Where I think it's less speculative is on the ratio of risk to reward, right? So in other words, it's very speculative, but for a 400% return, I think it's a good speculation relative to that risk to reward. Very similar to my Tesla trade. Odds were Tesla was not going to rebound to all-time highs, but at 1,000% ROI, I think the odds were much better than that it would rebound to all-time highs. So I'm going to post this in the chat. I'll post both. So buy to open 16 Jan 2026, $79 call. Sell to open 16 Jan 2026.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for the people that are used to, let's say, overnight options. A lot of people just got in that or whatever, where we're talking about over an 80% win rate and we're shooting for a 20% return. Here, we're shooting for, 30, 40 times that return. So we're not going to have an 80% win rate. It's going to be lower, but there's a much higher reward if we win.
Right. And then also keep in mind, you can do this with very low risk. So like it is risky in the sense that your probability of winning is low. But if you want to trade one contract with $16 to see how it works out, you can literally trade it for $16 and see how it works out. So, keep in mind when we say high risk, we mean like, hey, we're not expecting to win. We don't mean high dollar risk. Just to be clear on that. Okay. Sorry, it's taking me a second just because I want to type in both of these for you. Okay, that is now in the chat. So hopefully this makes sense, guys. You've got the 79.80, which is going to be your tightest spread, easiest to manage, all that sort of stuff. You can trade for about 16 cents. You can literally do one contract and risk $16 if you want. You could do 2 contracts and risk $32. Or you could trade with a little more size, still not much, $56, but just it's going to be 1/3 the contracts there. So I need to actually do the math here. Let me see. I just realized, Dave, I have no idea how many contracts I want to trade here. I guess I'm going to trade like 300 contracts. So my risk reward is 16 to 73. I actually would like to go a little higher than that. Yeah. Okay. So at 400 contracts, I'm going to risk about 23K to try to make about 97,000 on IBIT. That's about where I want to be. Now, I am going to try to start at 56 just in case, or maybe, well, I'm going to try at 55. I'm sure I won't get filled, especially at 400 contracts. But the flip side of the equation here is that at 400 contracts, I want to get the best price possible, right? Because the more contracts, the bigger the difference it is going to make here on my trade. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? So because I'm trading more contracts, I probably won't get easily filled at the lower price. At the same time, every penny means more to me because I'm trading 400 contracts. Just want to make sure we're also clear on that as well. Wow, we're getting another rally here into the end of the day. It looks like, by the way, SPY working on 0.3% up, as you can see highlighted here. So that trade there is on. Let me just replace there. See if we can get 56. And I'll just crawl this up one penny at a time. I think it'll fill for less than 58 cents. I don't know if anyone okay, Bob got filled for 56. Mike got filled for 56. So hopefully 56, 57. Now, how do we manage this trade, right? How do we manage this trade? Well, this is what I call time management discretion. All right. Time management discretion. So let me see if I can share my full screen. Maybe that way I can actually draw on the screen and they can just kind of follow along here with me. Let's see if I can do that. Give me 1 second. I'll just set up a slide so that you guys can follow me. By the way, guys, hang on tight. If you missed the presentation, we mentioned overnight options and the upgrade and all that kind of stuff. We will talk about that here in a second. We'll just do the same presentation that you guys might have seen or missed earlier. We'll play that right here in a second. So if you're waiting on that, don't go anywhere. For now, we're talking about Bitcoin. Actually, that's not going to share the whole thing. Let me do it this way.
And for anybody who missed the opening playbook roundtable discussion, it did get posted earlier, but for some reason it didn't take to the page that we usually go to. So I refreshed that. It's there now. If you want to see that after this, you can see the roundtable discussion we had this morning at any point in the replays page. That's in the announcements underneath the presentation.
Perfecto. Okay. So what do I mean by managing with time? So I have this trade on IBIT here, and my risk is, I forget already, 22K, something like that?
23, I think you said.
23K. Okay. So here's my risk. My reward is right around 98K. Now, this is the number that I would like to make over the next 4 months, right? By the 16th of January. This is the number I'm going for. And if Bitcoin just kind of moves and grinds in an expected way toward that number, I'm not going to do anything with the trade. I'm going to let Bitcoin move in a gradual way toward that. But the reality is that's fairly unlikely for Bitcoin, right? It's fairly unlikely that Bitcoin's going to put up a 5% month next month and a 9% month and then a 15% month and just kind of build momentum into that. More likely, if we do get a big move from Bitcoin, it might be down a little bit, sideways a little bit, and then boom, a 30% run over the course of 3 weeks. And if this is on, let's say, I don't know, November 15th, so really only like halfway through the trade, and I can get 80K of profit out of it, I will close it, right? Because the time versus the ROI flips to advantageous for me at somewhere along the lines of like, hey, I can leave the risk out there for half as long and make 90% of the profits. I don't actually have an exact rule for you. I should really build an algo that literally maps out those trades, because I think it would be pretty easy, honestly, to put the logic, like the time to ROI ratio. I got to add that to my list. I think that would actually be fairly easy.
Graham and I were actually talking about that the other day while you weren't here, because I actually had an idea of putting together one of those like little slider things where you could move time, you could move the stock price, and you could kind of see where the options are going to wind up or whatever, and kind of where you need to be stock wise to get out of it or to stay in it or to reach your
Yeah.
target or
Well,
whatever.
so
Yeah.
and that's kind of what it'd be. It'd be like, okay, well, let's say November 15th is plus 80K.
Right.
That would be enough to get me out. But let's say November, wow, that got really wonky there. Let's say November 1 is plus 60K. Well, that would also be enough to get me out, right? Less money, but also less time.
Right.
But let's say October 10th, let's say we get a 10% rally, is 40K. Well, that would also be enough to get me out, right? But if October is 20K, that won't be enough. And if November 1 is 40K, that won't be enough. And November 15 is 60K, that won't be enough, right? There's like a threshold here on how much time and risk you have. I don't have a perfect metric for you guys. I'll try to work on something. I actually think it'd be pretty easy just to put my thoughts into kind of an algorithm and say like, hey, this is how the risk to time ratio works. But it's something like that where I can hold it and get enough value for the time and risk that I have on the table to make it worth getting out of the trade. Hopefully that helps, guys. I know that's theoretical, so maybe you're sitting here thinking, "Wow, Nate, that was the least helpful thing I've ever heard." But that's the best way for me to be able to answer the question of how I would manage that. Is something like a time, a time to ROI ratio for the trade. Oh, boom! I got filled at 57 cents. Okay. So I'm not going to put a target on that, folks. It is out 4 months, well, 3.5 months. And I'm just going to look and see, okay, what happens here relative to the time I have on the trade.
You know what you could do? You could tell people, well, if it hits this number between now and the end of October, I would get out and then revisit it at the end of October and say, okay, what does it need to hit?
Yeah. Yeah, if it hits, okay, so we've filled at 57 cents. If it hits $2 and it's up 200%, anytime in October, take it, right? So anytime in October, if it hits $2, take it. Probably, honestly, same thing. If it hits $3 in November and hits $4 in December, like it's actually probably going to end up very close to those numbers. Like $2 in October means take it. $3 in November means take it. $4 in December means take it. I shouldn't say dollars, percent. 200%, 300%. Sorry, I'm confusing people by using dollars and percent interchangeably, which this is not a $10 spread, so you can not do it. Oh, all right, you guys hit the overnight option. Well, hey, that's a way to launch a new edition of overnight option. Boom, Dan, Joseph. Who else hit? Ted said. Bar, Brian, Roger, John G. Boom. What a way to kick off a new generation of overnight option traders, Dave. We hit in the same day. Awesome. I love that. Well, great job, guys. That is absolutely awesome. Okay.
Was that the longest 26 minutes of your life, guys? Or
yeah.
do you feel like it went fast? Oh, we lost Nathan for a minute here.
Yeah, that's pretty. Oh, wow. A ton of you guys hit. Take action. Love it. Okay. Let me do two things here. Let me jump back to IBIT and make sure that every question is answered. And then let me flip right back to overnight options and introduce what we talked about this morning. If you guys have no idea how all these people are making money right now, then you need to be in on overnight options, which I feel now I can really shamelessly pitch you on because everyone just hit a target in 25 minutes. You really need to be joining. But let me pause because I don't want to railroad right into that if we didn't have questions answered for any IBIT. Let me know any question.
Wait. Paul said this sun didn't even set yet. You can't call it overnight trades anymore.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Eric, the bigger size is not necessarily bigger dollar risk. Just starting out. So if you do one contract, it's 3 times the risk. If you're talking about whether you do 9 contracts and 3 contracts, well, sure, then it's all apples to apples. I'm talking about literally the baseline risk is higher, right? It's like SPX versus SPY. You can't trade the SPY for $50 and then trade SPX for $50. You have to upgrade to the $250 trade. But once you get up to $5,000, yeah, it doesn't matter. You could trade 50 contracts versus 10 contracts. Yeah, it is a day trade. I mean, with overnight options, we only hit like one day trade every month or so. So we're never going to go over it just in overnight options. But to Dave's point, if you're trading other things and you max out your day trades other ways, then of course my overnight option could put you over the edge. But it's never going to happen just because of those.
Well, we don't normally guarantee things, but I can guarantee it's the last overnight options that will close as a day trade in September.
Yeah, perfect. There you go. Guaranteed Dave Seal on that. All right. Let me see. I think, Dave, did you see any other questions specifically about the IBIT trade? Paul says the sun didn't set yet. Yeah. We guys, hang on tight. I know a couple people asking, wait, what about overnight? What's the tool? We're going to play the presentation for you here in 2 minutes. I just wanted to do my due diligence to make sure I answered any questions.
I didn't see any, assuming they understood the explanation about closing it. Like I think that answers all the questions that I saw. Just
you mean my brilliant explanation that was very practical and made.
It's more your artistic skills than your math skills, but no, yeah, absolutely. Just kind of, just realizing that, the sooner it hits a target, the lower that target needs to be. The further away from now it is, we need it to get to a higher number before we're going to take it out early. If it hits 60K value in a month and a half, you might get out of it, but you're not going to do it if it's sooner or later or whatever. So
I'll put it on my long list of tools to build to try to create that time ratio thing, because that's pretty much how I do all my discretionary trades, right? My overnight options, we're never going to have that conversation, but the discretionary trades are pretty much all going to be that. Well, it depends on how much time I'm in it and what the situation is. So if you guys don't want to worry about that, well then trade overnight options, because it's mechanical, it's simple, it's the same. Rinse and repeat every day. No, you won't hit your target by 4 p.m. every day. That will not happen, but you will hit your target a pretty high percentage of the time without doing anything, without managing the trade. I think that's one of the things that a lot of the students have kind of come to love about this trading strategy is exactly that. It's mechanical, it's step by step. I mentioned earlier, one of the most important overlooked things about trading strategies is simply, can I execute it? It doesn't matter if it's the greatest strategy in the world if you can't execute it. But if it's simple, mechanical, rules-based, and you can execute it on a regular basis, then I think it makes a much bigger difference, because you're not going to sit there saying, oh, yeah, Nate made a whole bunch of money, but I lost. You're going to be able to follow in step. So I do think that's incredibly important, and that goes into it. So, yes, this is a shameless plug. So anyway, check out overnight options if you missed out. And appreciate all of you guys who are already in. Fingers crossed to keep the streak alive.
Thanks, Nate.
A little over a year ago, I received an urgent call from options expert Nate Tucci claiming that he discovered a new way of trading. All right, so I got this call, and then he said it's one that allows us to place a quick trade before the markets close, right? Just at the end of the day, wait no more than 24 hours. And when everything works out as planned, watch as the position automatically closes out with right around $500 overnight, more than 80% of the time. Now, after reviewing the data and placing a few of these trades myself, in fact, I've got one open right now. It's up 19% at the moment. I immediately had Nate get on my daily trade room on the opening playbook to shed lights on these overnight options. And if you were there and you paid attention, chances are you are loving these overnight options, as the live published trade results have been even better than we could have ever imagined. In fact, every day in the opening playbook, we get people like 5, 10, 12, 20 people bragging about how well they're doing here on the overnight options. Beverly up 6,000. Brandon, 27 trades overnight, 25 wins, 2 losers. Love this trade. Catherine, look at this, 87%. James, 35%. Jennifer, $869. Rock, you guys get it over and over again. Look at that. David, 500-ish a few times. And hundreds of more stories just like them. Now, as much as I'd love to spend the entire class just bragging on the success stories that we've been getting from students almost every single day, including that 81.2% win rate over the first year of live trade alerts, not a back test, real-time trade alerts, and the $30,000 in profit in the model portfolio so far, it's actually north of $30,000. Well, we've got so much more in store for you today, because thanks to those advancements in technology, the ones I was teasing just a moment ago, $100,000 over $100,000 worth of live options data feeds, and some help from artificial intelligence, we're now able to take the shocking data behind these daily opportunities and merge it with an overnight market phenomenon that dates all the way back to the 1990s. And now what we're doing is amplifying those overnight options results you just saw. We're like the Fed is putting steroids in the economy. We're putting steroids in these overnight options. And this gives us more payouts than we could have ever imagined. I'm talking 3 to 4 times the opportunities at hand. Now, of course, we'll cover more on this in just a moment, so don't go anywhere, especially if you're currently a member. But before we get there, Nate, let's lay the groundwork on these overnight options. Why don't you show us how they work?
Well, I'd love to. And like you're hitting at, I mean, these are all thanks to a unique phenomenon in the stock market that we sneak peeked a little bit there. And one that gives us a daily opportunity to target right around $500 in less than 24 hours. And yes, we are talking about a daily opportunity because this is not a once in a blue moon type of opportunity. It's not once a month, doesn't set up once a week. Actually, we get a chance to target these 4 times every single week. For example, let's actually go back and take a look at April. Now, if you remember, let's just say that April was not exactly a pretty month. Over a 2-month stretch, the S&P slid north of 20%, considered an official bear market. NASDAQ was down 23%. Dow Jones was falling off a cliff. I mean, everything was ugly. And we got those Liberation Day tariffs that sent us down into the 5th worst drop in over 100 years in the stock market. But just to be clear, that literally did not matter to me or to the students following along with these trades. So if you started out with $2,500, you're not compounding, you're not scaling, you're not flipping all into the next trade. Here's some of the trades you would have got. So on Monday, April 21st, we'd have placed the first trade of the week. Now, folks could have automatically clocked out with $551 overnight from that trade. Then right back to the well, you plop down the next trade that same day at the end of the day. This time, $964 overnight. Rinse and repeat day after day. Wednesday, $543, real trade, by the way. Thursday going into Friday, $551, real trade. And all in all, it is a great week.
Yeah, Nate. I mean, we're talking $2,610 in overnight income that week. That's enough to double the stake. Now, that's north of $2,000 that obviously could have gone towards the groceries, the mortgage, the savings account, maybe some Danny Dimes rookie cards, which I've been stacking up on. Now, $2,000 in a week might sound like a lot of money to some of you, and maybe for others, it's not even noticeable. But regardless of who you are, where you stand, the one thing that I really love here is that we're not talking about hypothetical trades here. Each and every example shared today is based on real trades that Nate sent out to members and personally placed in real time. In fact, I've taken a few myself. I've got one on right now. And speaking of the members, your top students have been able to see results just like that over and over again. Here's Kevin, who said made over $3,000 yesterday with the overnight options. That's a one-day return for Kevin. Crushed it. Here's Ken, who said all winners in every trade. I'm averaging $2,500 to $3,000 per trade. So obviously you can start small or you can scale up here like Ken and Kevin did. $3,000 a trade. Very happy. Dennis here, 13 trades so far, 10 wins, $7,000 in profit. I've been trading a long time and never really thought about the approach Nate teaches. I like the limited risk, and I really like the set it and forget it process. And remember, all of that came from clicking a few buttons each afternoon and then watching as the position automatically closed out within 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, these are real. It's as real as it gets. Real trades, real alerts that people are taking with real money. And my hope is by the end of our class today, we'll be able to reach at least one more person, hopefully a few more than that, and just help them start seeing some of these same results. Now, of course, let's be very clear. Not every trade is going to be a winner, guys. In fact, losers are part of the game. As always, we never leverage ourselves. We don't go all in saying, hey, tonight's going to be the night. That's not how we trade this. But the good news is overnight opportunities hit with about an 81.2% success rate so far. So, you're winning about 4 out of 5 days that you put down cash on these trades. And folks get to place a new trade each day the markets are open. So, for example, let's actually just keep going into that next week in April there. Now, while most people are fretting a recession, thinking about the global trade war, inflation, everything was getting crazy. If you guys remember in April, you could have literally ignored all that and instead just focused on these overnight income opportunities. Takes about 2 minutes each day to take advantage of them. So day one, $522. Day two, $445. Day three, $869. And then just finished off the week really strong there. Pretty much nothing burger day with $588 overnight.
Well, Nate, we're talking about another $2,425, nearly a double, hitting the bank for the folks following along automatically, which again, that's not all that crazy considering that many of your students have routinely posted even better results than that just recently. They posted it every day in the opening playbook, Nate. Every day. I get jealous. Here we have Henry saying netted 23%, $5,000 on it yesterday. It was sweet. Henry, that
is sweet. That is sweet.
Robin J says 16 winners in a row, small account. Robin started with $2,000 and is now sitting at $8,000. That's what, a 300% return on the account investment. Very, very impressive. And then there's Cheryl. This one, I mean, my goodness, up $20,000 for this week following you. That is just outstanding. So, folks, if you're looking for a new way to trade, one that doesn't require a ton of effort but has shown the power to pay almost every single day, then look no further. Because in the next few minutes, Nate is going to walk you through exactly how these overnight income opportunities work, that age-old market phenomenon that makes it all possible, and the newest options data set that now allows people like you to automatically close out so far with an 81% accuracy on the live trades. And get this, he'll even invite you to trade the next overnight income opportunity live with him, targeting another $500 or bigger payout today. And then plus, if that's not good enough for you, if you stick around, you're going to get a first look inside the new software that's now amplifying these daily opportunities. This gives us 3 to 4 times the daily profit opportunities, all automated, starting this very week, starting today for you guys. So welcome to the Overnight Income Project. We really probably should put a 2.0 here on this chart because it's just been upgraded and it is going crazy. Now, like I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Graham Lindman. You might recognize me from the Perfect Income Trade, which has reached over 100,000 people worldwide. Maybe you've heard of my wrap orders, which is, I think, is a great way of trading. Now, given my trade track record, I normally don't take recommendations from other people. But when it comes to Nate, I always listen. And that's because despite having one of the most impressive track records that I've seen in the world of finance, including publicly growing a $10,000 stake to north of $50,000 in about 4 months' time, and also quietly generating over $100,000 in his slow and steady income portfolio last year alone, well, you're not going to find Nate on Kramer's Mad Money. You're not going to see him on Squawk Box or CNN's Your Money. You're more likely to catch him hanging out with his family at the beach, or maybe at a football game like he did this weekend, watching Penn State, then you'll be catching him in New York City. But even though he's not strapped to a desk in a skyscraper in New York wearing a suit and tie, he's still been able to routinely deliver for folks over and over again across his strategies, especially with the overnight options. And guys, I'm not kidding. We asked the team, hey, do we have any stories from overnight options that have been documented? I think it was about 15, 20 pages worth of stories just like these here. And while we've enjoyed stories like those from his very best students, well, today Nate is taking things to a whole new level. He's supercharging this discovery, pairing it with what could be the most powerful market force over the last 3 decades, allowing everyday folks to target right around $500 in overnight income almost every single day, and then inviting you to join him live and watch over his shoulder as he takes the next trade right before your eyes today. And you can follow along if you want to.
Yeah, and I love doing those live trade rooms with members. We have a ton of fun. We get to hear a lot of stories, a lot of recent wins, some of those ones that you posted. And, I love having new folks in there as well, because obviously it gives me that confidence that, hey, people are really coming along, they're learning, and we're seeing, people have like life-changing stories, which is the most humbling, crazy thing ever. Just, you're in a Zoom call and you hear someone saying like, hey, this really like made an actual difference in my life. And a great example of that is what we just saw recently, because we had July. Now, in the middle of July, markets were grinding higher, but then we started to kind of get that plateau, if you guys remember, and regular working folks still getting the worst of inflation, all those reports coming out, groceries still high, all that kind of stuff. But with the overnight option trade, once again, none of that actually matters to us, because each and every day we get that new opportunity. Like Monday, July 14th, $798 would hit the account from the overnight trade automatically. Then folks could place the next trade, again, automatically cashed out for $535 on a pretty ugly looking candle there. Then done it all again, quick trade, $543 automatically deposited on Wednesday. Then Thursday, going into Friday, we get one more opportunity for overnight income, and boom, it hit $520 within 24 hours again. Now, of course, you all know, like any strategy, there's bound to be winners and losers. I'm not trying to show you, hey, we never lose. But in this case, the win streak did actually keep rolling right along. July 21st, $528 in overnight income. Then July 22nd, $513 in overnight income. Then July 23rd, $520. Then July 24th, $535. And by the way, it kept rolling into the next week as well. July 28th, $798. Then July 29th, again, kind of an ugly candle there, but didn't matter for us, $535 overnight. Then July 30th, $520 overnight. So yeah, pretty nice.
Nate, that's 11 straight winners in a row. And many of those came on red market days. We saw where the candle was red. In other words, we're talking about days where the stock market fell lower, yet you still won. Now, you're going to need to show us how this is even possible, because that's a jaw-dropping hot streak. And while some folks here might think that we're just cherry picking the best of the best, the truth is a streak like that actually isn't all that uncommon for you with the overnight options. You actually had another 11 trade win streak the month before. You hit 10 in a row back in May. And I saw someone post in the chat, they did 12 in a row themselves.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had our fair share of really hot streaks. Those are a lot of fun when you get rolling. But just to be like fully transparent, we had a great couple of different streaks in July, but we did have two losers as well there. So you have to take those into account. And if you just stuck with it, you invested $2,500 every day, there's an opportunity without actually compounding at all, you would end up with $4,575 in overnight income for the month of July.
And that's including the losers, right? That's the net.
Yeah, so the net, and that's, without compounding. That's not like rolling into your next trade at all.
Nate, that's a really outstanding number. I mean, think about it. The average person brings home just shy of $5,000 each month. But unfortunately, in today's economy, that's really not enough to get ahead. It's enough to survive. That's why 61% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. And it's been horrible for retirees or soon-to-be retirees, because thanks to inflation, $1 million in the retirement account just won't cut it anymore. That used to be the magic number. That's what I was told growing up. Yep. But now they say you need an extra $800,000 in the bank just to retire comfortably. And that's left millions of people forced to delay their retirement 5, 10, even 15 years out. And Nate, as you've been saying for months now, this isn't the American dream anymore. It's more like the American nightmare. But by the looks of it, again, your overnight options, which came from these are real trades, guys, that folks just like you took in real time. We're looking at what could really start to make a big difference. $4,575 in overnight income from July, not cherry picking, including the losers too. Now, I know that's not retire overnight type of money, and that's not what we're here to talk about today, but that would have been enough to nearly double the average monthly income for the average Joe. So there you see on the left, you don't have overnight options, you make almost $5,000 a month. You add in the overnight options, you've nearly doubled that take-home pay. And that gives folks a little more freedom in their day-to-day life. And in the month of July, maybe that means throwing $4,000 into the savings account, booking a round of golf with you and some of the best friends, and then going and grabbing dinner after the round wraps up.
Yeah, well, it's obviously those type of results that get me so excited about this overnight income project. And I get even more excited just thinking about what people are about to see, which is how we amplify the results over the coming year. And I think this is one of the coolest breakthroughs technology stuff that we've talked about. So I'll cover that here in a couple of minutes. I think it's going to blow the lid off, this project, both for newcomers, but also for my current students. So if you guys haven't seen all the details, I've sneak peeked a little bit, but there's actually more to come. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And don't forget, the icing on the cake, because I'm also going to be inviting a handful of folks in here, and it will only be a handful for now, to go ahead and actually take today's trade with me live, targeting right around $500 by tomorrow morning. And obviously, just again, I think we've said this 10 times already, but I'm not going to guarantee tomorrow's trade is going to be a winner. But given the 81.2% hit rate from our live results on 200 overnight opportunities, I'm obviously as confident as I could be going into any trade as I am with overnight options. Now, listen, I know there's quite a few people concerned about the economy. Some of our experts talked about that, what the government is doing, and if a major recession is right around the corner. So first off, let me just let you know that I do think it's a legitimate concern. I think it's smart for people to start kind of saying, hey, X, Y, and Z could be on the table, because the last thing you want is to hold the bag, right? Sitting there in the market, waiting for it to recover for 10 years like the 70s, or even in 2022, where we just lost 3 years of time. But I actually think that is why the overnight income project is such good timing for right now when there is so much uncertainty, because not only is our money not tied up for months, weeks, or even days, it's in one day, out the next. So we're avoiding a ton of the overall market risk. We don't really care what the trends are, but it's also a way to help everyday folks target a couple $100 or more nearly every single day the market is open. And it's regardless of which way the markets are headed, whether they're up, down, or flat. we really don't care. Like the next month, we just went through July, a phenomenal month. Let's take a look at August. Now, at the beginning of the month, stocks were red hot. You guys probably remember. So again, let's take a very different looking month and say you start with $2,500 and you would have cashed in almost every single day. Just check out the real-time trades, real alerts, published trades, verified, that you could have taken $597, then $535, then $528, $528 again, $724 there. Then we got the middle of August, right? Got a little tumble to the downside. Well, you could have actually done really well. $932 there, $568 there, $371 even on that really ugly candle, and then $543, $535 following through on those next ones. And then just to finish the month strong, stocks started, kind of grinding sideways. Okay, what would you have done if you followed along? Well, 528, 520, 520, and when you consider everything all across August, you have gone 13 for 16, even with some of those really ugly gaps down. So if you had 5K invested, no compounding, no scaling, you would have still ended up at over a double there, $5,087 in overnight income, including those losers.
Well, Nate, that's an extra $5,000 for the month. I mean, if you think about it, I just gave you the number of the average take-home pay. That's kind of like having another full-time job without actually picking up any extra hours. Now, Nate, I know that you're a reasonable guy and you're very clear with everyone that there's winners and losers along the way. You've said that a few times. So again, if you're expecting to win 100% of the time and become an overnight millionaire, this isn't for you. But for folks who are willing to stick to the strategy, which I know we have hundreds, if not thousands of members now following along with this, they've took these trades in August, weathering the good and the bad. Well, the results were really incredible. We're talking about a $5,087 opportunity for the month. And keep in mind, folks, that would have happened when the markets were falling down, they were going up, and they were completely flat. We had a mixed bag that month. Now, Nate, this seems like the perfect strategy for the current market we're in, at least for the uncertainty that we're all feeling right now. So tell us, how exactly does this overnight income opportunity work?
Well, before I show you how it actually works, I think people, if they don't know, kind of need to understand how this all started. Because a while back, I published a brand new strategy that hit the world by storm. Now, in a nutshell, what makes that other strategy so special and so unique is that all you need is a very, very small move, about a 1% move in the stock market at any point during a 2-week window. And if you hit that small move, the brokerage should automatically cash you out and pay about a 50% ROI on the trade, even if the stock actually eventually drops during the trade. So that's called automated options. And most people have probably heard me talk about it. Now, this new way of automated trading, getting paid for the brokerage to take those targets out, really transformed investing for me and for hundreds and now thousands of people out there.
Yeah, and I mean, the stories from the automated options are in this as well. Modi here, 9 for 9, made $11,000 in 9 weeks. Here we have Roger S. is unbelievable, up ahead $18,000. And that's because your trade alerts have been off the charts good. I mean, just look at the first 6 months of live trade data. Hit 82% win rate, model portfolio up 18 grand, exactly in line with what Roger, one of your students, reported on his end. Now that's like making $1,000 per week.
Well, honestly, I mean, when we got automated options rolling, I really never imagined trading it any other way. But that was before I stumbled across some really shocking market data. We hinted at it earlier that allows us to supercharge those exact kind of results. This is an overnight phenomenon that gives us the same type of opportunity, but this time hitting in 24 hours or less. Now, this was September 9th, 2024. I was sitting on a panel with a guy some of you guys know, Chris Pulver, who's a money manager and really understands these market technicals. We had about 1,000 people on that conference call, and he shared some data, which I had seen before, but never really had that light bulb moment until I was sitting there thinking about it. Now, what he warned, again, I talked about this a little bit ago, is that trading during the day is actually a huge mistake. There's really no money to be made for most people. However, overnight, the stock market typically makes all of the strongest gains. And that simple concept, the data behind that, was really the key insight that unlocked everything for me. Now, let me show you exactly what I mean, because it's pretty shocking. If you look at this chart, this goes all the way back to 1993 through the current times, okay? And what you're looking at is the average market return from trading during the day, so that's like 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., versus overnight. So the blue line shows you what happens during those regular market hours, 9:30 to 4 p.m. That's a zero return from during the day. So even though it's 30 years of market data, it's actually zero return. However, the orange line is the movement that happens when the market is technically closed. So people think that nothing's happening overnight. That's actually where all that movement. So you can see almost no money to be made during the day. All of the best returns actually happen overnight. Now, again, we've had that data for years, proving overnight trading is where the actual movement in the money is, but no one I know was able to actually take advantage of it on a nightly basis. And the reason is simple.